Okay, what is a proxy? Well, a proxy is pretty much as it sounds. It's a stand-in for something else. When we are dealing with very high resolution images, we want a low resolution image to sometimes work with, just to get the flow of the animation and everything. And it makes previewing what we're working on a lot easier. Now, there are two sorts of proxies. One is a proxy that is rendered out on the fly, so to speak, rendered out by Nuke when it's needed. And the other is a pre-rendered proxy, which is, as it sounds, a proxy that is rendered elsewhere and fed into Nuke. Now, proxies are normally half-resolution images of our original source files, but we can change that. If we press once in the node graph and press the letter S, we get the project settings. Now these values here, they all deal with the proxy, and we can change our proxy mode from scale. In other words, the default, it's a little bit difficult to read this, the default is that we use a proxy that is half the resolution, half the pixel dimensions of the source file. Okay, but we can, if we want, change that to a format, and this fella becomes active, and we can pull down to have, say, 1024 by 778 or something like that. So the default is fine for most purposes, and the default for is scale, and we want our proxy to be half scale. Okay, so we can then go out. We can close that. Now, our on-the-fly proxies, they are up here. Now I want you to look at this value there. You'll notice it changes as I press that proxy button here. Okay. Okay. So the disadvantage of working, it's now rendered out, Nuke has rendered out a half-scale proxy, and that's fine for lots of purposes, but sometimes you want one that's already rendered out, and that can read a lot quicker. So how do we, well, we can make those in another application and render them onto the disk somehow, but we can actually make them ourselves if we just press the letter W, which is the write, and we get the write node. Now, what I'm now doing is reading in at this point here and reading out immediately afterwards, except I've got the proxy button engaged up here. Okay, so what I do, I open up this fella here, I copy all of that in, close it, I take that into there. Okay, now I need to adapt it slightly, because currently if I render it, it'll render out onto my original files. Now I've made a, whoa, it's telling me it doesn't, this is an if file, curiously enough, so it's telling me I should change that into, say, a TIFF. Okay, there we go. And I'll just get rid of these. It's a previous render. So I've got a file on my system there called lightstick05, indicating half scale. So, and that equates to this part of the path, lightstick_05. And I can make that also apparent should I want in the file name itself. And in case you haven't figured, this little fella there, that denotes a frame range. So we have if we go in, we'll see what it actually means, is that we have the file name lightstick plus 3 digits afterwards, and that's what that 3 denotes there. Okay, so I've got proxy button engaged. I've put an address of where I want the thing rendered. I've put it in the proxy line there. So now I can render, and I've made sure that that button's engaged, and render. Let's just do a small sequence. Let's do, say, 150, 155, and go. Okay, and there it is. Now just to check, we've got here, we've got our original files, our full-scale files here, our proxies. Let's open one up in Photoshop. It's a green sequence, great. Image size 944 by 531, and that corresponds to our proxy scale there. So a very easy way of making a pre-rendered proxy in Nuke. Okay.